This land is your land, and this land is my land, from the California to the New York Island.
It's 6:01 p.m. We're starting the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Property meeting. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling this meeting to order. We do have minutes that were emailed out to the commission. If everyone has had the opportunity to review those from our September 26, 2023 meeting, if there's a motion
I'll make a motion.
to adopt the minutes. Second?
Second.
Second by Allison. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Great. My chair report and update. Really, I don't have much to discuss this evening. Most of my comments will be within category or line item number 4. I will begin with number 4. One thing I wanted to note is, as you recall, in our last meeting of September 26, 2023, we agreed upon discussing the potential change in use of 2 properties, specifically 9 Brookwood Drive, which is 1.83 acres, as well as 38 Mylan Road, which is 1.39 acres. We chose these 2 properties because of specific deed language that we did review on numerous meetings prior. I will like to note for the record that the following board and commissions were notified of this meeting and this discussion this evening. Those were Chris Sorensen from Agricultural, Karen Kravitz Fire, Robert Burke Police, Tim Austin, who is present here at every meeting for Conservation, Jeremy Rosner for EDC, Susan Davidson, Human Services, Robert Blythe, Inland Wetlands, Andrea Weinstein, Recreation, Robert Klee, TPZ, who is typically here as an ex-facto member. However, he was not able to make it tonight. Susan Jacobs, 2030 Task Force, and Chris Dickerson, who is a co-chair of the 2030 Task Force. Kathy Hunter from Housing Committee, Hillary Drum, and Tom, is it Kennefick, I hope?
Kennefick.
Thank you. Both of the Sustainability Committee. So we did notify all those commissions and committees. We did receive input from Kathy Hunter. She was the only chair, head, can't speak, I apologize. She's the only individual or only committee that did respond. I do not see anyone here for public comment yet at this time. And I will read, it was very short. It was an email that was sent to our commission. She indicates that on behalf of the Housing Committee, we recommend that the town-owned properties of 38 Mylan Road and 9 Brookwood Drive be used to promote affordable home ownership opportunities. Providing town-owned properties to advance these types of development is in keeping with best practices for promoting affordable housing. The specifications for the developments will still need to be determined. And that was the input from the Housing Committee. Tony does have copies of that input for anyone who would like their own copy. So that's what we did receive. Again, we asked individuals to provide their public comments, whether it was in writing or in person. If it was in writing by Friday, if it was in person, obviously tonight. And again, no one is present here. So that is the input. That being said, any questions about what I said so far? Then I'll move on. Okay. So I did visit the properties that we are reviewing this evening. I did take pictures. I was by myself today while I did that. I did provide the pictures to Javier, who has somehow become our tech guru over here for all meetings. So I don't know which order you like to do this in, Javier, but if we want to start, it's on 9 Brookwood Drive is first on the agenda.
Whichever one you want to do first is fine.
Okay, we could do that. And while you get those ready, I also wanted to indicate that I did contact sent an email today to Chris Sullivan, who also is on many different committees and commissions, but in particular the inland wetland question pertaining to 9 Brookwood Drive, in that it is 1.83 acres. There are some wetlands within that property, and I just wanted to get a generalized answer, if I could, as to how that would affect, if at all, any potential development, if that's what was chosen to be done with this property. But of course, I will say, because I emailed her today, it was last minute on my, and I'll take full responsibility for that. So I did not receive a response back yet as of this evening. So, that being said, if we could, I will show you the photos of 9 New Brookwood Drive, and for the record, I am not a professional photographer. So,
I have to apply to myself too.
great, thank you, Patty.
So, just like that, some wooden
Fantastic.
plastic.
Okay. So, should we turn the light off so people can see it?
I can do the front.
Is that good?
Great. So basically, as you can see here, as the other photographs will show for 38 Milan Road, I'm getting used to saying Milan and not Milan. Obviously, it's undeveloped property, wood-like in nature. This particular property is off of Johnson Road, close to the Woodbridge Country Club properties, across the street, so it's on the corner.
The agenda states it's about 50% wetlands.
Right.
Is that obvious from just being on the street?
We estimated that. I wouldn't go by that exact, whether it's 50%, 35, 40, whatever. We did review it on the map, the wetlands map, and it
Yeah.
appeared, if we had to guesstimate, that that was 50%.
You know, I
Yeah.
understand that when you're using just the overlay, it's in the odd shape of the parcels, you're not gonna be exact on that, but.
Right.
But I wondered if that was.
Obvious from the
in any way
pictures?
From
No.
your vantage point.
No,
It was
just
not.
looks like a wooded lot.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause
And-
the wetlands, as I remember, I brought it up right now, well, the wetlands are in the back.
Right,
Yeah.
And then 50% looks like it's a fairly good.
good amount.
Yeah.
Right.
Look at the overlay.
Yeah, thank you, Javier. So, right, so so the overlay here, again, as Patty indicated, it is in the, kind of wraps around in the back. As you may recall, we were looking at additional properties in the area that the overlay showed were 100% wetlands,
Yeah,
so those were
right next
taken
door.
off, right next door. So, the question, obviously, that would have to be answered by Wetland Inland Commission is whether or not this is a particular parcel of property that should we decide as a commission to make a recommendation to develop. That would be something that we don't get involved in. That would be something for not only the Board of Selectmen to call in whomever, but Wetland Inlands to weigh in on. I don't think they'd be able to answer that question anyway, even if Chris were able to get back to me in time.
Yeah, Chris should be able to give you some
Right,
sense of
right.
the setbacks from the wetlands and the buildable lot sizes.
Right.
That buildable square, I think they call it, size of.
Right.
That needs to be left on the property.
And again, within the deed, which we'll pull up after we look at the photographs of this particular property, was this the specific one, if you recall, with the?
No, it's
No?
the other one.
It was the other one, okay. So it's a pretty generalized residential lot, so we're not restricted by the specific language of the other property in that they required, if I recall correctly, we'll go through it again, specific sizes, et cetera. So, that is the property in a nutshell, that's it. Does anybody have any input, any questions about this particular property? I guess we should pull the deed up too, Javier, maybe,
Yeah,
and look
sure.
at that language.
So I'm glad we made a point to visit the properties, because just driving by it, it doesn't look like wetlands, right? It looks like wooded forest.
Sure.
So I'm glad this is part of the review process. Matter of fact, the other property, which we'll get into later, looks more like wetlands than this one does.
I know, right, ironically, and there is not, there are not.
So that makes me question whether, or the last time that was updated, or, has anyone evaluated the soils there recently? Because that one is subject to, it's a low point in the street, but we'll talk about that later. This one it abuts a few residential lots. It's actually across the street from another home. My only concern, and I'm sure Inland Wetlands will answer this when they get to evaluating the property to see if it's buildable or not, given the abundance of wetlands around here, I wonder how buildable that is. It's not just a little wetlands, it's a lot of wetlands that's across the street from a pond, and it calls into question a lot of kind of feasibility. But yeah, I'm just glad we're looking at that part of it.
And I think, again, these are issues that, of course, important issues to discuss regarding whether or not our commission decides to recommend change in usage. But these would be issues that we can't answer. We have to take a look at all the totality of circumstances regarding this particular parcel to make an informed decision regarding any potential recommendation. Does this property as is serve the town of Woodbridge in a manner that our commission is satisfied with, I suppose, is for lack of a better way to phrase it, right? Or is this a particular parcel that our commission feels the change of use could occur and we could utilize it for residential, of course, pending the approval of inland wetlands, and that would all be with board week. That would be kind of, I don't like to use the word punted, but it would be sent over to the Board of Selectmen to have those, I'm in football mode, to have the Board of Selectmen call in the appropriate, experts, et cetera, to decide whether that can ever even be developed for residential. And I should point out, Javier, if you don't mind pulling up the deed, if that's accessible to you, why it is, again, just to reiterate why we're looking at this particular parcel. We were drawn to this one because of the residential language in the deed.
Yeah, it's also worth noting this is zoned as A, which is residential.
Right.
So.
And again, as Javier pointed out, thank you, Javier, it is situated, it's at a corner lot, right? But it is situated around, as Javier indicated, other homes, one across the street, one next to it. So it is a residential neighborhood, and it is A, as Javier just mentioned.
Where's Johnson Road in this view?
It's to the right.
To the right, it's right there. I think it's that
Right there.
round road,
Okay.
yeah. And the road goes right through the wetlands too.
Just looks like another parcel in a neighborhood,
Right,
there's
exactly.
nothing notable.
Right. Any other comments while Javier pulls up the deed? Do you have any comments? Okay. Just want to pull the deed so it's accessible to those watching, and
It's been sitting like this for how many years?
wow, how long years have we owned this property? Alice?
Hold on. I can look up the date for just close the window. Hold on. You want to know when we purchased it?
Yes.
Alright. Which number is this again?
9. Oh, I'm sorry, this is 9 Brooklyn Drive.
9, right?
Right.
Yep.
And while we're waiting, I just wanted to point out, which I forgot to mention
No,
this.
not 9. Is it 9?
Yeah.
It's 9 Brookwood Drive, 1.83 acres. We did present, as you all were there, thank you very much for being there, to the Board of Selectmen, the progress that we have made in the Cupop list and the information that's attached to it. And everyone, I think the input was, people were pleased about having this completed, and being able to access it online and utilize the various links that we were able to provide, so I think it went well.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this a quick claim for lack of paying taxes, or is this just a standard quick claim?
Good question.
No indication that it's,
We, 12/14/1990.
That's not what, no, that's,
Yeah. So 33 years ago. Because 1990 is in fact not like just 10 years ago, like we all want to think so in our mind.
like, that's what I was thinking in my mind.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
I know.
1990, not that long ago. That's 33 years ago.
That's a long time, okay.
Okay?
Thank
'Cause
you,
I keep trying
Allison.
to tell myself that the 90s were yesterday.
I'm very
and they
depressed
were
now, thank you,
decades
thank
ago.
you for that, okay. So, all right, so let's see here, easement, and the telephone company, and then restrictions, is there a restriction to you from Woodbridge? I can't see that far, so excuse me, can I just go in the corner for a second?
Right away.
Okay. Is there a restriction to your easement?
When you filtered our live sheet, not the full list that's published, but the working one, we're missing a couple. This isn't on here now.
Did you unfilter all of them?
I tried, but I tried. But I keep clicking the filter and I know I'm doing something wrong and I know.
Because it's filtered by restricted use as well.
Right, but
So this
Oh,
is
here we
the
go.
deed, any other documents, Javier, attached to this?
There's
Other than
one more
that quick claim, one more
page here.
By Brookwood Drive.
oh, there it is.
Okay. Those are all the documents?
That's it.
Okay.
1990.
33 years ago.
33 years ago.
33 years ago, thank you for saying that again. Okay,
32 years ago. December 14th.
Lord have
thank
mercy.
you for that. Okay. So, all right, does anybody have any other questions based on the deed? Right.
So what,
Does anybody want to
can you
make a
just
motion?
kind of recap for me? What,
So this is
9
this is
Brookwood
9
Drive.
Brookwood Drive, which is this. This is Johnson Road here.
yeah,
Brookwood Drive here. Looking at this parcel right here,
okay,
which is roughly 50% wetlands. We were just looking at the deed to make sure we weren't missing any kind of restrictions or easements, material anyway.
and there are no easements, there are no.
There are easements, but they're not material to our discussion. They're just utility easements to
Yeah.
put telephone poles.
Okay.
And I visited there today. Patty visited there as well on another occasion. I took photographs, and it's just a wooded property, just like anything else on the corner of Johnson and Brookwood. So
Yeah.
it's a residential area. It's in Zone A, which is residential, and so
It's level, doesn't.
it's level, right?
And it's owned by the town.
Correct. So
For almost
for almost 33 years, which I thought 1990 was 10 years ago, right? But it's
Yeah.
apparently 33 years ago. So.
Yeah.
So that's where we are right now. I don't know if
One
any
other
other dis-
comment, Nicole, just as to a question that was raised. On the Map Express site, which is this site, doesn't list when the wetlands soils information is from. There's no date on it. We'd have to go back and ask that question, I guess. But I went up to the Connecticut data sources where they publish the files that are used, and they have a program that unfortunately doesn't have their street addresses on it, but looking at zooming down to this property, this street, I'm seeing the same shape of the wetland, so it looks like we're in this particular case, we're similar, and that's from 2021.
Oh, that's recent. See, that's not 33 years ago.
Yeah, the data only on the wetlands
Great.
overlay.
Thank you, Tim, for that information.
Yeah.
So that's very
We'll look
helpful.
again
Thank
on
you.
Myland
Okay.
Road when we get there.
Okay.
See? We got you doing it too now.
Okay.
Mylan.
All right, so I guess at this point, if there's no further discussion, I don't know if there's any type of motion on the table regarding change in usage or to remain the same.
Why would it, yeah, not remain the same? I mean,
So I've got a question, and I guess it has to do with more procedure than anything. Can we refer a property to have inland wetlands review it without any kind of proposal or business before the town?
So I thought about that. You know, my guess, and I'm not an inland wetland expert, is that that would probably be something that has to be done when, if let's say we decide to change the use and recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they sell this property and, you know, put a residence on it, that they would probably have to review that and see what the plan is for what the what they wanna do for the single family home. I don't know.
I
don't
would
know
think
the
it would
answer
be
to
the
that question.
Board of Selectmen.
It'd be the
that would-
Board of Selectmen anyway, I
would
mean,
do
they
that.
don't have to take our recommendation,
Yeah.
you know?
Right, but I would hate,
I don't think they're gonna, in other words, I don't think they're going to say,
so putting myself in the shoes of a selectman, I would hate to make a recommendation with something contingent on something else, right? If you don't know if this is buildable at all, and we sell it, we've sold it, we can't take it back, right? So I would hate to make some kind of recommendation when we don't know all the,
can't.
That-
Right.
well, we
Facts.
can know it right now.
yeah, but
And I did
that's
notify.
why I asked if we could send it to someone like Inland Wetlands for review to see if it would be, from a general perspective, you know, buildable property or not.
I
that's
mean, I
just-
did notice them on this property, and I said within the email that we were going to be discussing this particular property, and they didn't respond. So I would hazard a guess that if they were concerned about any development, that they would have responded.
I wouldn't necessarily make that assumption.
Yeah.
I would think the onus of the property would be on the person that buys it.
Yeah,
I mean, they would have to
Not
bring
us.
it, they would have to bring it to inland wetlands and, you know, have it, before they buy it, they say, okay, we're thinking of buying this piece of property, can you tell me if it's buildable?
And even before that, to Laura's point, is that, let's say we made this recommendation, that as a, you know, vacant space, it's not, you know, anything that is being properly used at this time, our recommendation is that, you know, we dispose of this property in some manner or fashion, then the Board of Selectmen, I would assume, would, first of all, I think there has to be, the procedure has to be followed, you know, regarding town notice, et cetera, but one of those things I'm sure that they would do is the Board of Selectmen would ask the Inland Wetlands Commission whether this is even something that they can dispose of, right? I mean, that is the $1 million question, Javier, and you're right. But I think that goes, as to Laura's point, that would be the Board of Selectmen that would have to investigate that further.
And if they're interested in selling it,
Which they may not, they
They
may
may
say,
not
we
be.
don't want to.
yeah, they may wanna just
We
keep
don't
it
wanna,
as,
we don't wanna follow the
yeah,
recommendations,
yeah.
and that's it.
right, and then there's the flip side of that coin, right? So what value does this serve the surrounding wetlands, right? What environmental or ecological benefit? Because not all property that we own serves some kind of economic benefit. Some of it is purely environmental in nature.
Right,
And there's the flip side of that. That's kind of why I want to get inland wetlands to look at it, because I'd like to see both sides of the coin. Is it buildable, or does it serve some greater ecological or environmental benefit to the town, right? And then in that case, it's worth maintaining the current use, right? That's,
and is there a
I don't
charge?
have the answers to those questions. That, like I said, they're more procedural in
Is
nature.
there a
but-
charge for that?
No, there wouldn't be a charge for it. My experience with both planning and zoning and inland wetlands is they try to keep a focus on those matters that come before them to need a decision. Their charter is not to be looking at land use
And what ifs type of
and what
situation,
ifs.
yeah.
You know, the conservation does that some, you do that some, but those two commissions try to keep, and I remember specifically TBZ saying we can only do this because that was what came before us, and that, they don't typically look abroad.
Right.
That's not to say that the Board of Selectmen could not make a request of them on something.
Of course.
But I think the path, and not closing off the path you suggested, Javier, but I think what you probably owe to them first is to have a general understanding of what makes a lot buildable. And so that you can screen at that level, and then if there are still questions, then you can go with something a little more specific, so they're not feeling they're being pulled into things they don't usually look at. I mean, I think maybe a simpler questions would be get a better reception when you go to them. And I think with an understanding of what makes something buildable, what is it that wetland looks at, you can apply a lot of those screens yourself and probably come to the right understanding at a level. Not perfect, and inland wetlands is not gonna, they're not gonna make a decision before they have to make a decision,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly, they're never gonna tell us,
right,
yes,
right,
this is perfect
right.
for development.
Yeah.
Right, so,
Build
so
a
I think,
house, you
so I
know?
think you can come to your own probable conclusion, basis on which good enough to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen or not, or say, you know, or even put the problem in there that the thing you can answer, you know, but you can make, I would assume you can make a recommendation, it doesn't have to be exactly black and white, you could say if
If
it's-
approved by
it's-
inland
if it-
wetlands.
Or if it's probable that this would be approved, you know, during the application process, then makes sense, and let them say, well, will it be approved, we'll ask inland wetlands, we'll knock on the door, because they have the authority to do that more than, you may not get that response, you know, the first one maybe, the second one, but after a while, they're not gonna, I think, be happy with being pulled in all the time. But
Right, so we've noticed them once with no response, so is the commission want to notice them again?
What were you gonna say, Tony?
I'd like to just, they may, if you ask, I mean, I don't know if all the properties we looked at, this is probably the one that we're saying is concerning. They may give you a cursory review of it. I know only because my son did a scouting project, and we had to come to them, they asked if we could do it. They actually, we went with them while they looked at the property. And they said, yeah, you can, he was building something inside an area that was deemed wetlands. And they gave us permission to do it. It was a, I don't know, a 30-foot
boardwalk.
walking path, yeah. They had to build outside. They gave them specific parameters that he had to bring the materials in to the area. They couldn't cut in the area. But the fact that there's dry lands here. So I think that if you ask, they may give you a cursory review of that property. I mean, I don't know procedurally if you have to go and put it on their agenda to look at.
Yeah, just,
But that's what my son did. He had to present, he had to say what he was looking at, and they gave him.
I mean, ours isn't, I mean, I understand that point, because they're actually physically building something and they knew what they were building. We don't know what's
Yeah.
going to be built here, that's the
Right.
problem. I
Right.
mean, certainly not a developer, and, you know, I mean, I could certainly ask them if you want me to, again, specifically
I was
about,
just going to hit your point. I mean, you sort of wanted to
about
know.
what, you know, whether or not
What's the total acreage
it
altogether
potentially
in this
could be
one again?
developed.
1.8.
1.83.
Only 1.8, right? So if half of it is wetlands, we're talking about roughly an acre. That's not, right?
That's enough to build.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
that-
I'm
but-
just
It is,
trying
and
to-
there's a TPC regulation,
That's
which
what-
I'll confirm with Rob about, you know, certain dates and when properties were subdivided, and, you know, I know we have this certain acreage rule,
Yeah.
and, you know, being kind of like a grandfathered in type of situation, but they would still, have, I don't know how to explain it, but they would still, I believe, own the entire 1.8 acres. It's just what they could
Right.
build the house on.
Right, you wouldn't subdivide this.
No, you would not
No, no,
subdivide.
no.
You-
They would own the
and-
full 1.8 acres.
Yes,
Right,
I'm
the
just in
town-
my head trying to
Right.
think,
And-
if someone were to purchase this, they would be left then, it's math.
Yeah, they'd be left
Slow
with
on
a,
that.
with a section that's not wetlands, they'd have to
Yeah.
comply in their design of the setbacks from both the other property lines, the road, and the wetlands. They
Correct,
each
yep.
have their own sort of setbacks.
I mean, lots of
There-
us have
there's-
wetlands on our property
that-
with
that's
things I
right.
can and can't do in my own yard, so
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like
Yeah,
an
no,
acre with
Yeah.
half of
What-
it's
what-
wetlands, it's
the
a
one-
very different,
yeah,
So it's a
that,
very
well, that's
feasible-
right,
You
you
still
have
have,
it.
it's feasible.
You have, you know,
It's
in
guaranteed
my
woodlands, too.
remembrance, you have enough area for a buildable square.
Right.
right.
Yeah.
But there are other regulations that come into play, and I'm sure I don't know. And I'll just add beyond this, and I thought somebody maybe made a comment, you're, in this list, you're gonna come across a lot of properties that have wetlands. So
Oh, yeah.
you'll have the same discussion, so understanding the sort of the guidelines up front, I think would help you get through this
Mhm.
discussion a little quicker.
Yeah, so I mean, the more I think about it, the more I agree with your point that our motion, if we were to make one, should be something to the effect of, you know, the Board of Selectmen should pursue or research whether this property can be disposed as potential, you know, use of housing or
Residential.
residential, yeah, whatever. And put the onus then on the Board of Selectmen and then possibly a developer.
I mean, we could definitely make it conditional, sure. I mean, that's.
But I don't think, we don't even need to, because that is just a recommendation, and it's up to them to vet it and make sure it's possible, right? So, I mean, I think we need to go as far as we can with what we know and the resources that we have.
So is it the want of the commission for us to get more specific information, to Tim's point, regarding this particular property? Or do we just make a motion, if it's in existence, I'm not putting, I won't put words in anybody's mouth, that we want to, that we recommend, pursuing residential disposition?
My
with
want-
with, I don't wanna say the word condition, but you know what I mean, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say condition that, the inland wetlands is, obviously has to be investigated further to determine whether or not that's feasible, or we just do that ourselves, and then we tell them they were either not able to, one or two things are gonna
Yeah.
happen, or three things, they're not able to answer at all,
They're not
they would
gonna
need to
answer
wait
that.
for the developer,
Yeah.
or no, you cannot develop there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the only three
Yeah,
options,
yeah.
or
Yeah,
four,
but-
I guess, if they don't.
My ask is that we
Respond to it.
establish some kind of protocol or procedure, because like Tim said, we're gonna have a few other ones on this list, and I don't wanna piecemeal these asks if we need them. We should
Bundle
probably, if we have a few, we should bundle those together, and then if we can, find out if we can refer to in the wetlands or whatever resources we have, and
Like a
find out more.
general, what they look at generally speaking, because I guarantee they're going to say, if someone wants to build a home here, they're still gonna have to come before us, and we have to look at it
They gotta get the
specifically.
plans.
We can't give you an
Yeah.
answer, which I totally understand, because I can't. But just to try to get a general idea, like to Allison's point, how big is this property? It's 1.8 acres, they're going to own the 1.8 acres. To Tim's point, okay, what are the setbacks that we have to look at here? So what are we looking at? They will own the full 1.8 acres, but can you build a house? Sure.
Yeah.
Like Tim said,
I
sure,
had
you
a
could put
quarter of
house
an
there.
acre in New Haven.
I had 0.16.
Yeah, yeah.
0.16. You got plenty of acreage
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
So
to build a
the-
home.
The question for inland wetlands might be, can you, in general, applying to any property, can you tell us in English what you think about when you're trying to see if there's a building, a dwelling is gonna be problematic on the property? What concerns, and you can ask them to get a little detailed, how far is the setbacks, for instance.
Right, right.
So that you can measure that.
Because my guess is that entire neighborhood, if we expanded the giant wetland map, I bet there's a lot of houses on that street that have
Yeah, to
wetlands.
the right there is in
Yeah.
the north, but to the left it's not.
Yeah.
If you
We
scan-
have some
if you scroll-
aquifers also.
You zoom out,
Right,
you'll see
right.
that it's,
Right.
I mean, I know, I'm sure we all know people in town, ourselves perhaps
No,
that
but
have
by
wetlands
default,
on the
when you own a
property.
property that has wetlands on it, you are restricted as to how you treat
Right.
that land. And
Yes,
how you,
yes,
as the
yes, you
homeowner,
are.
have to approach.
Yes, you are.
You have to abide by the rule,
But,
you know,
but
rules
since
and
your
regs
house
for
is
that.
already there, you're not worried about
Right.
being able to build unless you wanna do an accessory
And how
dwelling
do we,
unit.
how do we monitor that?
That's
Well,
above my pay grade.
That's beyond the
Above
Cupop,
my pay
Well-
grade.
Coupop
There's
review.
no
I'm
No,
sure, I'm
situation.
sure some people.
Okay.
Coop, there is an
So-
entity, there is an enforcement officer in town,
Okay.
and that's the person who's responsible for
wetlands?
Yeah.
monitoring that.
Oh, there you go. That answers the question. Okay,
So how do
so
we know?
we will I'll contact again inland wetlands. I'll contact the chair directly. I did put the email into Chris. Perhaps she'll get back to me this week and answer the question for us. Chris Sullivan.
I think she should be able to.
She will. I mean, again, it was a last minute, email. So I will see if we can get some generalized information. So, to Tim's point that we have this, and then we can defer the decision or the recommendation or the, decision of a recommendation. That was a lot. That was a lot mouthful. For the next meeting, if that's the wish of the commission.
So just to be specific, are you gonna do that, Nicole?
I will send
Okay.
from chair to chair an email
Okay.
to them, and then I will, from chair to chair, and I will send it over and let you know the answer. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next, because there are more photos, I should be a professional.
You're gonna be soon.
Is 30 Milan Road.
It's Milan.
It is 1.39 acres.
So
and this.
I typed the address into my iPhone today, and the iPhone said it was Milan.
Well, I know, they said that to me too, but they also say Wally Avenue,
Yeah.
so I'm not really hopeful. Okay, so 38, I'm just gonna keep saying it, Milan Road, because I'm getting used to it. 1.39 acres. This is the property, and Javier's gonna pull up my wonderful pictures and map, that has specific language within the deed, which we will pull up. I mean, very specific, as you may recall. I think they even discussed garages, if I'm
Yes,
not
this
mistaken.
is the one.
So we will look at my lovely photos first. Is that the map of it right there?
That is.
Okay, so, again, a residential area, houses around it, actually on either side of it, across the street from it. It is, again, it's actually a sloped property, and Patty went by there as well, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Very, again, woodsy area, and so, it is sandwiched in between two homes and across the street, so very residential. There may be water there because it's sloped, right, so, we had a lot of rain, so it went down there, that direction. So,
I also found it interesting that they had this rope. It's like a wire rope
yeah,
kind of barrier in front of it. I didn't know
it's
what
really not
purpose
that big of
serves.
a drop, but
Yeah.
I guess,
I have-
safety first, right?
Yeah, I have those on my road.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
have them on one of the roads off of my street too, and it's not really,
Northrop has them.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not
Across the
very.
street
I drove
because,
it.
Well, hey, safety first, right?
yeah.
So, this is one of the other properties. Now, this is the one, we had the wetland map up, there was no overlay on this one. And also, it had the very specific language.
There are quite a few properties on Milan Road that are sloped.
Yeah.
The driveways go straight
They're sloped,
down.
they go
That's
down
the
or up,
terrain of
yeah.
that street,
Actually, that's the road, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that I had to go up.
Yes.
Right, Patty? Like, we had to drive up a hill.
Racebrook Road,
to
you
get
have to
to
drive
it.
up
Right.
the hill. onto
So
the
all of those
Milan
houses are
Milan.
built, however the developers do it, to make it,
Yeah,
driveways
yeah,
down,
yeah.
up. And I guess, Javier, do you wanna pull up the deed for this
Yeah,
one?
so
Cause
I'm
it's
gonna
like
write down.
very specific language.
And while Javier does that, I'll comment that the deep 2021 inland wetland soils also shows no wetlands on this
Thank you, Tim.
parcel.
Thank you. I mean, if I purchased it, I'd want it to be built up a little, cause, the water, but.
I wanna be on the top.
Build a big hill up there.
where I am now.
Yes, exactly, right up top.
And then I watch them below. Like, you know the water goes down there.
Right. And how long have we owned this property, Allison?
This is,
Let's find out. Since 1993, so 30 years. And it was September 27th, so we passed our 30th birthday on this one.
So sad, 30 years.
1993. was
Seems
30
like
years.
yesterday. Oh boy,
Oh, good.
you're gonna have to read the specifics on that one, Timmy. Oh, this may be a,
Foreclosure.
foreclosure, and how much for taxes, is that what this is? Let's see.
Unpaid taxes
Does it say how much?
as of October 1st, 1984. Probably not.
I doubt that would be in the legal deed.
Okay. So that's the,
This is the only page.
here's a document that have all those
This says.
That's a previous deed.
Yeah. It was,
62/185.
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome.
yeah, it listed the town as of having acquired it for $0, and,
Oh, okay.
the previous owner had acquired it in 1957, and it was not, listed, the price then was not listed. It is not listed.
do we know how much the previous owner paid for it?
That's what I was just saying, there, it's not.
Oh my God.
5,500
Yeah.
Oh God.
in 1965?
Let me see what date this is from, because I had the same question.
I have it as 57,
This is
and
very
just,
specific, did you see that no trailer?
Was it stamps on here? 1957, correct. Looks like
Alright.
we got the postage on there and everything, so.
So this is the one that has all the specifics, so minus the trailer exclusion, you can't park a trailer on the property apparently, according to this.
My
What,
bad, who
what
was
is it saying that that it has to be single private dwelling house designed for the occupancy of one family,
Family.
containing a finished living area of a minimum of 1,700 square feet, excluding garage, porches,
Breezeways.
breezeways, enclosed or open, patios and basement. Okay, so basically the living space has to be at least 1,700 square feet. Garage designed for the private automobile or automobiles of one family and one commercial vehicle, as hereinafter set forth, shall be erected or placed
On a for
for
said
sale.
lot.
And only one commercial vehicle registered with a capacity not exceeding 1 ton. Well, they do allow for commercial vehicles. Can be kept on said lot.
No trailer though.
No building can be erected nor placed upon said lot until the, what is it?
Lands,
And
land
specifications For
specifications.
saying, are approved in writing.
So that allows for commercial vehicles, but it's a capacity not exceeding 1 ton. Most pickup trucks today.
Yeah, that's a pick.
Exceed 1 ton in
It's
capacity.
2023, that's like a,
Yeah, so it's not very commercial anymore.
No, it's not. And that's it, that's all that's all the four, like that's it.
that's a
They-
pickup
they-
truck in 2023.
Okay. So, it has to be at least 1,700 square feet, not counting the garage is what I got from that.
Oh, there's number 5 here.
Or breezeway.
Did- did-
There's a
Javi-
5?
Javier,
Wait, Tim has a question.
Yes.
I, was researching the other matter, and I didn't see how you got to that deed that had the restrictions. are you looking at the most current deed?
The most current deed was the foreclosure. This is
Okay.
the prior deed to the foreclosure.
Okay, so my question is, and I have no even thought of what would be true, is that if there's a foreclosure,
Do the restrictions
does the
remain in effect?
restrictions carry through?
They do.
Okay,
Yeah, we looked that up, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
yeah,
We did, they do.
Yeah, that's back when I couldn't believe that any restriction placed on a property could continue in perpetuity, and apparently it can.
yeah, well, they
does.
can on owners. I didn't know if
I
that,
think that's absurd.
I didn't know if that
Agreed.
applied to, into a municipality or a government entity.
Right.
And the other question or consideration that would need some research is, have any of these restrictions been found to be unpermittable, unlawful? There are
Do they not do
later
that when they
interpretations.
put them in the deed? Nobody checks to see if they're unlawful?
No, I'm saying in the 30 years, whatever.
Oh,
or
have they
50
since become
57, so
unlawful?
I'm way
Okay.
off.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
what
that's
ha-
not 57 was
No,
30
that,
years
that's,
ago.
yeah, 70 years, I guess, so I don't know, whatever it is. Have there been rulings by
The state or.
the state or the federal government that obviate some of the restrictions? And
The only time I've seen that happen, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you from experience,
Yeah.
is that, obviously, if there's something very obvious and egregious in a deed, for example, we did have properties here in town in Woodbridge,
Yep.
which mine was one of them, that had that restriction, we just were talking about this today, Allison, that had the restriction that you had to get permission from neighbors, which we still have to do, but it was for a different reason, to keep people out.
yes,
And that was obviously found to be egregious, and that was
Right,
found unlawful
yeah.
because that was discriminatory in nature. This, it's just basically saying a
Yeah.
residential property at least
Yeah.
1,700 square feet, and quite frankly, I don't think, given the homes that are recently being built in Woodbridge, that that's going to be a problem, but,
What
you
about,
know.
what about, asphalt driveways on properties on wetlands? Do they allow them to build asphalt driveways?
Well, this isn't a wetland, so we don't have to worry about that.
Oh, okay.
This is no wetlands, this is nothing laid over this is just
What year
regular
did we buy this?
land.
This, we said, what was the first deed? It was bought in
1957.
57.
And
And we
1993 is when we
foreclosed
foreclosed
Yeah.
upon it for tax
Yeah.
purposes. So the only question that we got, if you recall, and this is not something we have to worry about, this is
Yeah.
for, again, giving it to the Board of Selectmen to determine, is there was the question at the Board of Selectmen meeting from Sheila McCrevin saying whether or not there was an ordinance that indicated that we have to at least get what was owed to us. I don't, again, in this, real estate market, I don't think that's going to be a problem either, but again,
Yeah.
that would be something for the Board of Selectmen to decide if they were to even take our recommendation, if we recommended to
Yeah,
change the use.
I don't think that's if that exists, it's not functional at all.
No.
Because
These are very dated, yeah,
the amount the property would be sold for dwarfs any kind of taxes out there
absolutely, absolutely.
due, especially from 1984.
Correct, right, the taxes
So-
are probably 2,000 or something at most, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we
Un-
are there, that's the only issue, we saw the pictures, we see what the deed is, again, residential, will you be able to have a 2-ton truck there? Probably, I'm sure the town won't be, chasing after you for your pickup truck, but, and again, I don't think the 1,700 is an issue, but square feet.
yeah. But something to make sure the Board of Selectmen are aware of, maybe they are because she'll ask the question specifically for this, but just so they know in case they wanted to somehow give it free so that to a developer so they could fulfill something they were trying to do within the town.
Yeah, so
I'm
I-
making that comment
Mhm.
if this occurs in other places, also.
So I suppose, I don't know if there's any other discussion on this particular property, but, or any motions on this particular property, or any,
So the two that we just reviewed, the comment that came in, do we have to now revisit that comment, or,
from housing?
yeah, no?
What we're gonna do, so, just again, you know, kind of what we did, well, exactly what we did for the property that was down on Merritt Avenue is that, you know, we give all the facts and the information that we've, you know, obtained, right? You know, the wetland information, the deed information, all of that. And then, in terms of input, we could certainly put in the input, well, we will be putting in the input, and they're the only commission that or committee that responded. Laura, you weren't here, but the only, input was that on behalf of the housing committee, we recommend the town own properties of 38 Mylan and 9 Brookwood be used to promote affordable home ownership opportunities. Providing town-owned properties to advance these types of development is in keeping with best practices for promoting affordable housing. The specifications for the development will still need to be determined. So we would obviously put that input in there because for something such as this, you know, if that's something that the Board of Selectmen wanted to investigate further, you know, there's Habitat for Humanity that builds, you know, single affordable homes, things like that. That again would free for Board of Selectmen to decide. Our purpose is whether or not, as is, right now it's an undeveloped parcel of land within the town that we have owned since 1993, if it's serving its, you know, living its best life, as they say, as this way, or if this would be, you know, used for the town of Woodbridge in a better manner, right? Which, again, it'd be residential, single-family home. So, and whether the Board of Selectmen agrees with us, disagrees with us,
But the
wants to
entire
sell it to the
street
developer, it's all residential.
Yeah.
It's all residential. I mean, it's sandwiched in between two houses.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, what other purpose
Right,
would that plot of land be,
right,
except for
Nothing.
another house on Mylan Road?
right.
Right.
That was
Well,
one,
I
why
can
I
offer
questioned
one
why
up.
would we change?
Right.
I can offer another purpose, and it actually helps answer a question I was gonna ask, which is, what discussion are you gonna have on possible uses of any of these parcels going forward? You know, shouldn't only have the possibilities of just leave it, or put housing on it.
Well, this
You should be
particular
able
one
to.
has a restriction for housing though.
Yeah.
And again, was researching, didn't listen to the specific language. Is that the only thing you can do with the parcel, is put a single-family house on? Or is it saying, the type, if you build a house, this is the type of housing that will go on it? And I wanna get to my other use of this in a minute.
But this isn't on behalf of conservation, right? Because did you guys discuss this at your meeting, or is this your opinion?
This is my offering thoughts during this meeting. This is not a conservation finding.
It's subject to the following
Nothing but.
restrictions.
Single family dwelling.
Yeah, that's it.
Number one.
Yeah, I'm trying to read it in it.
Nothing but a
Yes.
single private dwelling home designed for the see, now I was reading.
We're gonna make it bigger, to make it easier for you to read. There we go.
They're subject to the following restrictions, namely, it's number one.
Yeah, if you want,
So that's it.
shall be erected or placed on the. Okay,
1,700
so that's
square feet.
very restrictive, but, so I'll make my comment applicable to perhaps many other parcels that you'll take up. And a parcel like this, situated where it is, in the middle of a residential area, could be a micro park for that
A
neighborhood.
micro what?
Micro park.
Oh, park.
Okay.
Small,
Yep.
small area where people can go, and there are, a little mini playground, something that you would roll your kids to, a place to go that's nearby, just to walk to get out and do things. So that's something within the town that could be done for the recreation of the residents.
Okay, so we have so just to recap here, We have 9 Brookwood Drive, where I'm going to reach out to the Inland Wetland Commission or chair to see if we can get I'm not gonna get a definitive answer, but a generalized kind of to-do checklist kind of thing if we're looking at wetlands. 38 Mylan is still open if someone wants to make a motion on that. But that's where we are right now on these 2 properties, so.
What's the motion?
Okay, I guess I should say, if the commission would like to, and really, I mean, are we really changing the usage of this property if there's such specificity in the original deed? I mean, it should be residential anyway, according to the deed. But technically, we still have to make a recommendation to change it to the Board of Selectmen. How should we word this then? I mean, I guess we're technically not changing the usage, but it is open space right now. So the technical motion would be to change the usage from undeveloped land to
I think
single-family residential.
You're not, well, I think your recommendation is to sell it.
Yeah,
Is that
Yeah,
what you're
just to
contemplating?
sell it
Yeah.
And the restriction goes with
in
it.
accordance with the deed for a single-family residential home.
Or, as you mentioned before, engage with
Habitat for Humanity, which, right.
to,
But somehow, I mean,
Address-
this doesn't seem in the town's best interest to hold on to a piece of property and do nothing with it when it has very specific intentions for it to have a single-family dwelling. Whether that is
So-
selling it to someone,
Yeah.
whether it is engaging Habitat for Humanity, whatever it looks like, this is a parcel of land that the town should take action on in accordance with its deed, so it doesn't sit there for another 30 years.
in this
So I
case,
guess the
it may-
recommendation is to sell it and to look at the different options
How
for
many acres
the
are is this
One
piece?
1.38.
1.39.
39. 1.39. So we make the
You
recommend.
can only put one house there.
Oh yeah, very specific. But to the housing committee's point, I mean, the Board of Selectmen could investigate whether they sell it to a developer for a private single-family home, or they utilize Habitat for Humanity, for example. I mean, I'm sure that's just the one I'm thinking of off the top of my head. I don't want to. I'm not endorsing any
Yeah,
particular affordable housing company, or organization. But, and it would be the Board of Selectmen's decision as to what they did with that land. But I think for our purposes, we provide the input from the Housing Committee. We make the recommendation, if that's what everyone votes on, to sell the property, to build a single-family home, and to take into consideration the input that we have received from the Housing Committee in making their decision, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So that's the motion.
I-
I'm sure it could be more.
That
Did
was
you
a
get
lot.
that, Jody? That was a
That was a lot to
Someone
write.
has to say, I motion to.
I make a motion
Move,
to,
yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Come on, you're good at this,
Come on,
Patty.
Patty.
oh boy, no. To sell the property in accordance with the existing deed in place and further investigation as required. No?
By the Board of Selectmen.
Well, this is our recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. Trying to keep it simple without a lot of words.
So you said,
Otherwise, it could be a paragraph.
The motion to sell the property in accordance with the existing deed in
Deed.
place.
Yep.
The motion is to recommend the sale
To
of the
recommend,
property.
yeah,
The sale of 38 Mylan Road.
right.
Milan.
To somebody who knows how to pronounce the name of the street.
If you
Got a
were writing
motion on the
something, I
table?
couldn't see it.
Huh?
Okay. So the motion is to sell 38 Mylan Road in accordance with the deed in existence for the property.
The recommendation to sell, yeah.
So this is what I have. So Patty made the motion and everybody helped fine tune it. So Patty's is recommending the sale of 38 Milan motion to recommend the sale of 38 Milan Road in accordance with the existing deed in place.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Yes. Have we done public comment yet?
Like,
Public
well, I-
comment was,
So we have online public comment and comment from other commissions. So I noticed agenda item number 5
I
is
did
public
announce in
comment.
the beginning that there was no one here for public comment. I can call for public comment.
Okay, so
on it right
we've
now. I
done,
did announce that in the beginning.
okay.
I indicated
Thank you.
that, yes, so for the record again, there's no one here for public comment on this motion. So or in general, the meeting, so.
Wait, do we have to finish the motion?
You have to finish the motion.
Well, it was
Okay.
seconded.
That's just
We're-
discussion. Any discussion regarding the motion?
okay.
I would suggest that you consider changing the word sell to dispose of.
Change it to dispose of?
I see
I'm
what you're
sorry.
saying.
To leave it
Oh.
open to, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so they can decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea, in case they decide to.
And also the whole
Sell it
intention
or-
is to
or-
remove it, to dispose of it as a publicly owned property.
Well, also because it leaves open the option if the Board of Selectmen don't wanna sell it, but want to donate it to, for example, to somebody, like
Come
Habitat
to
for
an arrangement
Humanity.
where it
Right.
wouldn't be a sale.
Let's
You
say
know, it's
dispose
just-
of,
Couldn't
that's a
they
good
keep
idea.
couldn't they keep it as the land and
Yeah.
then build the house, and the house belongs to the owners, and,
No,
like, Massaro Farm? Well,
well, we wanna,
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't serve us any
The-
purpose, because
Yeah.
then we don't get any tax revenue from the home, we don't
Right.
get,
got it, got
it's
it.
cleaner just to dispose of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
The,
I like the word dispose,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
We're still in discussion on this motion, so
Yeah,
is this
yes.
about the motion?
well, good, because I have a second
Okay,
statement. In general, as, and this is not the case with this property, I realize, but in subdivision regulations that the town's adopted,
Right,
subdivisions are required to set aside a certain amount of land as open space.
yes.
And that is kept in perpetuity. It doesn't apply here, because this was taken by a foreclosure. But having that open lot serves the same environmental conservation purposes as when that subdivision is done. So it gives a place where wildlife can flourish within the neighborhood and connect to the little pockets that are around. So I'd just put out that for consideration as you consider whether that is your recommendation, that this could be preserved just as is, as open space for that neighborhood, where there's,
Well,
We have
We
like
have a deed
40
that's-
other properties
yeah.
that are like,
yeah,
Yeah.
this is a
That's fine.
specific deed restriction, so
I,
we have other properties that certainly we can
Yeah.
take that into consideration, so.
well, yeah, and you may quickly dispose of that consideration, but as in the thought process, that should be a consideration. The
Okay.
Conservation Commission hasn't looked at this public or town-owned property yet, so I can't comment from the Conservation Commission point of view, but that is something that we'll look at, and some pieces of property are more valuable than others in that regard.
And true, we're not the deciding factor, like, we're not the deciding entity.
No.
This is just a
Well,
recommendation,
it-
and the
it-
Board of Selectmen will be having hearings, et cetera, and then
Yeah.
all of, if there's
Yeah,
an
there'll be-
official
there'll be-
position,
Can be further
Yeah, sure.
points of decision,
right,
but is, I still think as you think it through, you should think of all the angles.
okay. Any more discussion? So we're gonna change it just from sale to dispose, Tony, okay? All right. Okay, all in favor? Okay, so that was unanimous. So what I'm going to ask the commission is that because we are deferring 9 Brookwood Drive to the next meeting, and hopefully have more information, if we perhaps write one report to the Board of Selectmen, including both properties, and to that point, there is another property, which we're not gonna discuss this evening, we can discuss it next meeting, I did not notice it for this meeting. It's 31 Enoch Drive, which is also another residential only 6.22 acres property that somehow fell off the list. So I will, Javier, so I'm going to,
Wait,
I did somehow, I didn't say it was
Probably
Javier.
my fault.
I'll
take that one.
I'm going to send out the same notice to everybody. If there's wetlands on there, I don't know, and I don't wanna discuss it in the interest of time tonight. I will look at that overlay and make sure that I include 31 Enoch with the Inland Wetland Commission when I ask for comment. So I would ask the commission, and as long as everyone is in agreement, that we not write the recommendation report until all three of those properties that fall within the same category are discussed. I'm also going to include the two other properties that we own on Brookwood Drive that we determined based on the wetland map that they are not developable, did I think of a word? That they cannot be developed as a result of wetlands, according to the wetland map, and we will provide a copy of the wetland map as part of the report, okay? Because those are all fall under the same category, and these are the ones I would like to get out all at once, okay?
The category is restrictions on some type of restrictions?
These are residential restrictions language that was in the deed, but when you have a wetland situation, we can't adhere to that because they were
Yeah, it's 100% of the property is
covered
wetlands, yeah.
so we can't, our recommendation is we just can't, I mean, because of the regulations of environmental and such, so
Yeah.
I wanted to keep them all together when we do our report, I don't wanna bombard them with a million
Yeah.
reports.
And-
Okay.
And
Nicole, I'm sorry, what
yep.
was the property? Did you say 31?
31
31
Enoch,
Oh, I see,
Drive.
6.22,
Right.
okay.
and
okay,
It was my fault.
right,
and I
It's fine.
and then,
will
No, I
say
just wanted to know.
I will say to the commission, in case I'm not here at the next meeting, that the greenway goes right up that strip of 31 Enoch Drive.
right, so to that point, Tim, I'm gonna be noticing, did I lose my, ability to speak to that? I'm going to be noticing conservation,
Is it-
so if there's information about Enoch Drive that we need to know, for example, the greenway, anything else, please bring that to our attention before our meeting so that we all have it,
Well, you-
and then when
He's
we're
not gonna be
discussing.
here.
Oh, well, you can,
Email us.
you can email it to us so we have it, okay? Or, send somebody else, and then, so we have that, 'cause it's very important we have all that information when we're discussing it, right? So, that'd be perfect, thank you, Tim.
Tim, I'm assuming it goes up this side, like through all of this,
I
right?
can't see your cursor, it's the narrow part that comes off of Enoch.
Right.
And
Right
then,
there.
and that, in it,
Well, it's not on
And
the
it-
agenda, so we shouldn't be discussing it,
Yeah.
so we have to,
Understood.
we'll discuss it on the next meeting. But I would love that information, Tim, thank you very much, if you could get that to us. In terms of number 6, category 3 property classifications, next properties for usage review, I think we've already taken care of that, 'cause I just jumped ahead with 31 Enoch Drive. And I think that's enough on our plate to make sure that we close out the 9 Brookwood Drive situation. We add in 31 Enoch Drive, and then we start, compiling the information for our recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. And stop me if you're not in agreement, but that's what I was thinking would be the best way to do it.
Can
All
I
right.
just ask a question?
Sure.
So let's say Habitat for Humanity builds a house, and a couple buys it, they qualify, they buy it, and then at some point, they sell it. And they sell it for at the comparable prices. How does that work?
I don't think they can, and that's a Kathy Hunter question, because
Okay.
what makes a house affordable is, it is, again, deed-restricted for 40 years, I believe is the time frame.
Okay.
So they would,
Okay,
but again, I'm not an expert in that,
Yeah.
and that would be a Kathy Hunter question, which I'm sure the Board of Selectmen will get information on when they're deciding.
I mean, it would
What to
be a
do.
big,
But yeah, no,
windfall,
I
you
think that what makes a house affordable is not,
When you buy a Habitat, when you buy a house, now this is specific to Habitat for Humanity, so again,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that
doesn't mean
other
for
avenues don't
other,
say-
yeah,
But there's very specific
guidelines.
language and guidelines to the home
Right.
ownership and the length of the home ownership and
Right.
transfer all of that.
That's why when you hear, you
So
know,
people
natural,
can't- it's not a lottery.
right,
Yeah.
right.
They're not gonna
Like,
turn around and sell the
right.
house.
I mean,
Yeah.
you, like, that's, for example, when you hear natural affordable housing, why doesn't that count towards affordable housing numbers? It's because it has to have that deed restriction.
Yeah.
For 40 years.
Okay.
For some reason, 40 years is in my brain.
Yeah.
Please, if I'm wrong, nobody yell at me and send me emails, but
Yeah.
it's a very long period of time
Yeah.
that deed has
Yeah.
to say.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what we'll do for number 6. Number 7, Rob Clee is not here for member reports. Tim, do you have any updates? And then that's, our next meeting is Monday, November 27th, so Tim?
Well, it's hard to stand between you and closing the meeting, but
I didn't make the agenda, it was Tony.
But I really don't have an update that I think is of substance and interest, but I do have a comment, and sort of a comment and a question, since I have the floor. I was tied up and couldn't attend or watch the presentation to the Board of Selectmen, but I did view the video, and that seemed to go very well, so that's a really a good start to the process you've undertaken. There was a comment that you made, Nicole, during your remarks, that it wasn't in the beginning remarks, it maybe been, or it might have been in a response to a question, that really brought up in my mind a question I've had that I didn't know the answer to, but hadn't raised, and that is, you said something about your, of necessity, and these aren't close to your words, so please take that into account, but of necessity, you were only looking at category 3 properties during this process and couldn't look at the other categories. And I didn't understand that, and I don't understand why you've restricted yourself to just category 3.
Well,
the charter, you know, clearly lays out the 4 categories, and then that's paragraph A. And paragraph B says, it shall be the duty of the commission to study the uses of all such land and buildings from time to time in the study and recommend blah, blah, blah. So,
Well,
and I just missed it when I was here, so
So to answer your question, so
Yeah.
category 3, as you know, are the unrestricted properties. I mean, I know we discussed some restrictions on these
Yeah.
properties, but they're unrestricted, do not fall under 1, 2, or 4. 2 are properties that are utilized by all the commissions or agencies within town. Now, of course, from that chart, if they wanted to change the usage or wanted to get rid of like the fire department
Yeah.
wanted to all of a sudden leave, they obviously, per the
Yeah.
charge, would come to us and discuss those with us, but that's not necessary for us to review. Number 1, category 1, as you know, are grant and aids, right? So there's very specific restrictions on those.
Yeah.
And category 4 is not owned by us,
Right.
that's just right of first refusal. So we're starting with category 3, that doesn't have any restrictions.
So category 4 would almost automatically be out of discussion. Category 1 are severely restricted by grants and aid, what you can do with it. Maybe someone is imaginative, there might be something. But category 2 doesn't have legal restrictions. Those are just saying, hey, recreation department, you pay attention to this property. And those properties, some of them are large, some could be used for multiple, some are used for multiple purposes, some could be used for further purposes, some could be subdivided.
Right,
So
I don't
you-
think Nicole said that we could only look at category 3. What she was saying was, right now, we're focusing
On
on
category
category
three.
3 to work our way through the.
We're just prioritizing it, yeah.
I didn't go back and re-listen to the language, but I came away the first time with
Yeah.
with it, we couldn't, and that seemed to me not right, and those categories are some of the substantial properties around town.
Well, if I
Right.
Yeah.
said that, I apologize, because that was
no,
not what I
it's-
meant
you
to
don't have
say.
apologize.
We're
I just-
prioritizing category 3.
You know, just wanted to make sure it wasn't misunderstood. You can, I certainly choose only to do some, but those are some properties that have the ability to support other uses. And
Sure.
the use of the buildings is also supported in here, but.
But I think
So
we can
legal.
all agree that category 3 has a ton of properties in
Yeah,
it that we've
yeah.
owned for over 30 years that need to be addressed. and will be a lot easier to review at this
Some
time.
For the
The
night.
length
Right.
of from time to time
Yeah.
is not defined.
Right, exactly.
We know it's at least 30 years.
Yes, it's at least 30 years,
Well-
that's right, that's at least. And hopefully it's a little more frequently
No,
than that,
just wanted
Yeah.
to offer
Okay.
that up
Thank you.
because I think there's some value in the other
as
ones.
soon as, if we're
Absolutely.
looking for something to do after category
Oh my
3, we
God,
could
I
look
would love
into.
There
to
you go.
do this.
That'll be probably 20 years from now, we're done with category 3, but, okay. So our next meeting is November 27th, which is after Thanksgiving, I guess, right? So, wow.
Right?
So happy Thanksgiving, I can't believe I'm saying that, I don't feel like
We
that's going to
skip
be
our
really
December
soon.
meeting, right? Or did I make that up?
We
It's
do,
on
we
the
have
26th
always.
of
It's on the
December.
26th of December, so.
The
Yeah.
town's closed, the town office is
Right.
Wonderful
Yes.
news.
So I
Yeah.
think if anything, we can just, meet quickly, if we have to finish the report, so we can just get that in.
It
Get
is
that report in,
after
Javier.
Thanksgiving.
Now you're laughing.
Wild.
Yeah. All right, so I would like a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Anyone?
To adjourn.
Okay, seconded by Laura. All right, thank you, everybody.
We have to vote.
Oh, yes, all in favor. Would you like to stay?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, everybody.
Shining, and I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling, as the fog was lifting, a voice was chanting, this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.